So, Destiny 2 is going into Lightfall, right? Um, it's pretty hugely awaited. Strand looks fucking awesome. Um, the game has been going strong for a good few years with a lot of ups and a lot of downs, which is gonna happen with any game. But it's not terrible. It's better than D1 was. I still prefer D1 myself, but that's more like of good memories and nostalgia and hundreds of hours and me not getting frustrated with the game at every twist and turn like I do with Destiny 2. But I feel like there's a huge problem with Destiny 2's story. And it's not where it's going. It's not the characters or how bad the writing is. No. Everything has been fucking awesome this past year. The problem with the story is that your guardian is not special. He turns people into guns. He or she turns people into guns. They fight with the darkness and the light. The stranger was probably the first time like you're being told that you're special because the darkness and the light can flow through you evenly, or whatever she says, right? But that was the only time where it actually felt like your guardian was special because someone finally said that you were. So what I'm saying is that your guardian and yourself are so disconnected from each other. Like you as the player and your guardian. The guardian is supposed to be the vessel for you to experience the gameplay, right? And I get that, which is why he's mostly silent. I still think that's dumb, but that's just me. But it's not like he's your guardian, if that makes sense. Because there isn't any choices that you need to make. There isn't any fucking defining features. There isn't like a moral thing, like a moral choice between using the darkness because it was it had taken your friends, or it was an object of evil that had caused a collapse all those years ago, right? There isn't any moral dilemma with that. All you do is pick it up. You get a squabble from Zavala, and then after that, it's all done and over with. And I get now they're revealing that the darkness was a neutral force used by the witness, but it just seems like it was so quickly looked over about the moral obligation, or not obligation, the moral dilemma of using the darkness over the light. Zavala, I feel like Zavala was the only one that actually like made you question it, but he didn't really like push it further. He was just like, well, if you're gonna use the darkness, make sure you're doing it for the light. And it's just like, yeah, that's kind of the direction that everyone thought it was going anyway. But like, he doesn't ever mention it ever again, and it's just super weird. The Drifter had always been the guy that's just like, yeah, light and darkness, it's pretty much the same shit. Use whatever the hell you want, you know. Eris Morn warned us about using the darkness, but she knew that we could handle it, I guess. And same with the stranger, right? That it could corrupt us. But none of them like sat back and asked. Well, the Drifter probably did and just doesn't give a shit because he came from the Dark Age. But like Zavala, Ikora, and I guess Lord Salad and shit. I don't know, because there isn't enough characters to have like a bunch of people saying no and a bunch of people saying yes. Like there isn't like a moral dilemma there. All it is one guy saying you shouldn't do it because it's been our enemy for so many years, and then everyone else is saying do it but be careful. You know, it's weird because the darkness has taken so much from so many people. It caused the collapse. It did so many bad things, and yes, it was used by the witness, but years of fighting it shouldn't just change on a dime because you can use it now. You know, it's just weird. The story feels like the story is going good now, but I feel like there's no base anymore. Destiny 1's story was not that good. I'm gonna be honest, it wasn't that great. But the stories that came after Destiny 1 with with the after um after the like when Taken King came, and after that the story started getting comprehensible and pretty decent, right? And only when we hit D2 where the stories were actually starting to become good, way better than decent and good. But it just feels like there's no base anymore. Um, at least in D1 and the beginning of D2 during the Red War, you actually you felt special because, or not in D1, because in D1 you just felt like another Guardian, right? Because besides the time when you were called Saladin's Iron or Young Wolf, which was fucking awesome. I loved that. And then playing D2 and Shax would say Saladin's Young Wolf. That was awesome. But in what was I saying? Special. In D2, you felt special because you were the only Guardian that got his light back during the Red War, and you were the vessel of the Traveler, pretty much. You were the one that was going to bring the light back to everyone. And then you were also the one that helped the Traveler wake up. That was awesome. That was so good. I didn't really like Destiny 2's Red War campaign that much, but I know I loved the way the story was going. I loved how you became a vessel of the Traveler and how you were pretty much the one that brought back the light, right? That was awesome. That was perfect. I loved that. That was such a good concept, and it was super good that Bungie decided to go forward with that notion that the light called to you, so you went to it, and it came back to you, if that makes sense. And then, with you being brought back under the Traveler's light, that you would go forward and bring others back. That was such a good concept. And it really drove home how special our Guardian was. First you were our Lord Saladin's Young Wolf, and now you're the disciple of the Traveler. Or not disciple, that's kind of a bad word. The vessel of the Traveler. That was awesome. That was super good. I loved that to death. I can't express how much I loved that. And then Curse of Osiris came. You're the one that brought back Sagira and Osiris, driving home that you were special. That's awesome. Because you're the Guardian that brought back somebody that was long dead from the future later in the Osiris season. And then Warmind, you're the one that helped Anna Bray recover Rasputin from what I can remember, or at least Mars, which was awesome. And then Forsaken came, you're the one that avenged Kay's death, right? But during all of this, after the Red War happened, during all this, you're not named or given any rewards. Like, you're not given a name to yourself. Not like somebody else calling you something other than a Guardian, but you're not given like a legend for yourself, if that makes sense. People don't speak about you. They don't say, oh my god, you're the Guardian that took out the Black Heart. Oh my god, you're the Guardian that brought back the light. Oh my god, you're the Guardian that brought back Osiris and Saint 14. Nobody says that. To everyone else, you're just another Guardian. And I hate that. Because it feels really disconnected, because you feel like you, the player, the Guardian, don't really have an impact on the world. That you're just looking at the story through another Guardian's eyes. Like, I've had this thought that like maybe I'm playing as my Guardian, right? I'm playing the game as my Guardian, but I'm reliving another Guardian's travels and so on and so forth, which isn't really a good theory, but it just feels so disconnected because I don't feel like any characters in the game give a shit about what I've done for the last city and for the light and for the Traveler, right? I brought back Saint 14 and Osiris. I helped bring the Warminds back online. I helped bring back the light to all the Guardians. I helped the last city come back from the Red War. I was one of the main proprietors into the siege of the last city to get back our traveler. I was the one that defeated Gaul. I defeated the Taken King. I did all of this stuff, but I'm not anybody to any of these characters in the game. I feel this is just a me problem because a lot of people will just kind of go over, will just be like, whatever, I don't need recognition or anything. And it's like, I'm not a type of person that wants recognition, but I, but when it comes to a video game, I feel more immersed when I feel like my actions actually have an impact um, on the game world that I'm playing in. Bungie has said time and time again that they want the game to be an ever evolving, a game that evolves as time goes on, but it doesn't really feel like anything has been evolving, because the Taken don't spawn everywhere like they did back in Taken King, because there's like every 15-minute intervals a lieutenant would come and try to take over an area, but then you defeat him and then you get a reward for it. That was awesome. That was a perfect inclusion of the Taken King. But in in like DLCs, like you don't see that anymore. You don't see how the effects of like an enemy coming is affecting the rest of the world. They could have done this perfect thing where maybe it's just that I don't do patrols much. I don't really like doing patrols, so maybe I'm not experiencing this, but I feel like I never see anything new happening whenever I do go on patrols. You know, there isn't like for example, they could have done something with the Taken again, but then have them come weaker and less troves than they did before, or they or they could have what's it called? They could have done something with the Fallen, the ones wielding stasis. They could have had them try to take over areas with the House of Dusk. They could have done something with that on different Fallen controlled planets, right? They could rally the House of Dusk under the House of Darkness and have multiple stasis wielders other than just like one stasis wielding lieutenant, and they could have done something with that. And then in the Witch Queen with the Lucent Hive, they could have come to the moon. They could have come to fucking to literally anywhere the what's it called, where they could have come to the Lucent Hive could have come to anywhere the normal hive were, like in like those 15-minute intervals that they did before. Maybe they could have like fights with the stasis wielding Fallen. Like there's so much you could have done with these new cool characters that have different gameplay dynamics than we've been playing with for like the past 8 years. It would be so you could do something new with these new enemies that haven't been changed for the past 8 years. It would be so cool. I would go to patrols just for the sight of it. Before, I wouldn't, like back in D1, I would go for patrols not only to get like materials and stuff, but I do some missions on the side. I get some experience for the Vanguard. I do bounties. I do this, that, and the third, so I can rank up and stuff like that. But then I also can take out the Taken lieutenants that are invading an area. I can do high value targets that spawn, the war sat that spawn. I can do all of that in patrols, and you can do the same thing now, but it feels so much less impactful because of how often the public events happen, how often you see war sats, and there's just high value targets spawn like every 30 or 40 minutes, when before it was like a rare occurrence of this really tanky guy. And while he had too much health in D1, he was still fun to fight if you had like two others with you. But everything just feels so disconnected, because as soon as one DLC comes, you're not going to go back to another planet unless it's a story mission that tells you to, or a quest that tells you to. And only then in that quest will you see those same enemies from the DLC in that mission on that planet. Otherwise, if you go there and patrol, there's not going to be Lucent Hive there, right? So I can't remember what like if there was a mission that brought me to another planet that didn't have Lucent Hive. But I do remember that that every time I try to go back, like this was before year 2 or 3 of Destiny 2. Every time I try to go back to see what has changed after the DLC, nothing changed. The only thing that was new was the planet or the destination. That was it. Nothing changed. And every time I was just like, man, this is fucking boring. This isn't an evolving world like they keep saying they want it to be. The only thing that's evolving is the end game. Like, you complete the end of the game once again, and then you get more end game. They haven't established a base. They took out the Red War, Curse of Osiris, and Warmind. I forgot what the third DLC was, or the second one, but they took those 3 out. So now the game just has no base. Like, so I've already played New Light. So as soon as you finish New Light, you just get thrown to the wolves. There isn't like a subtle build up like there was in D1 where you do all the story missions and then you go on to the Hive DLC and then to the Fallen DLC and then to the Taken King. There isn't like that slow build up of ever evolving threats like there was back in D1. In D2, as soon as you get your light, as soon as you get your ship and all that stuff and complete whatever New Light missions there is, you get your Risk Runner, you're just thrown to the wolves after that. And to any player, that's going to seem extremely overwhelming. There's a lot of free-to-play games that I can compare this to. The Division, or not free-to-play, looter shooter type games that I compare this to. There's games like The Division and Warframe, which is the 2 that come to my mind almost every time I think about looter shooters. Destiny has this problem with not being accessible enough. The game is already fairly accessible as it is, but it's not accessible enough. It doesn't help you care for your guardian. And as soon as you're thrown to the wolves, you just do whatever the hell you feel like. And that's a problem. Like, why am I not interacting with my Vanguard? Why am I not coordinating with them? Why isn't there story missions talking with Zavala and Ikora about this, that, and the third? Me coordinating with Shaha to do some strikes. Like, the only one where Shaha is involved was the Omnigul strike, or the whatever the fuck it's called now. And like, they only ever talk to us over comms. They don't ever do stuff themselves, which it could either be me not understanding what it is the Vanguard did, because I always saw the Vanguard as it's literally the Vanguard, the people that are at the front, but our Titan and our Warlock Vanguard do nothing but sit in a tower and look at a giant ball all day. And then our Hunter Vanguard won't ever be replaced because Bungie feels way too fucking scared to put somebody in that place. There is at least 3 characters I can think of. Crow, Shiro from Rise of Iron, and fucking, what's his face? Crow, Shiro, there's a third one. I'm trying to remember. Shaw. Even him, I don't really like him as a character because he hasn't been fleshed out. He just seems like another generic character, like another destination vendor. Devrim was super cool because he got fleshed out as a character in the Red War, but guess what? The Red War's gone. You have to watch on fucking YouTube to have any semblance of what kind of character Devrim K was. He even is using the No Land Beyond. Like, the game feels so disconnected now than it did before. D1 did this perfectly because everything built up and the world was actually ever evolving. And I get it, back then they had Activision. But D2 is, in my opinion, failing at that, because the only thing that's evolving about Destiny 2 is the end game. And that sucks, dude. Because I'm the type of player that likes, if I ever get bored of the end game, I want to go back to the beginning and play it all from there with how strong I am now. and the only thing that I can do to replay campaigns is the newest DLCs, or not the newest, but like Forsaken, Forsaken, the Witch Queen, Light, Beyond Light. I can do all those again, which is completely fine. But those are things that have already happened later on in our Guardian story. And to get back on topic, why can't we interact with, or actually, so to get back on topic, our Guardian feels disconnected from the world. You're not given any real recognition, and you just feel like another Guardian living out, just, I guess, doing what every Guardian does, killing gods on a fucking weekly basis and making them all into weapons. Because apparently they make it out to seem like every other Guardian is weaker than our Guardian. But like, we have Guardians going strikes and soloing them by themselves, and yet Shah Han's guys of, I can't remember, was it like 5? It was either between 2 or 5, I can't remember, but they make it seem like they're just super weak, and you want to feel sympathy for these guys, but you don't, because they're just more Guardians adding up to a pile of dead ghosts and bodies. Like, I remember this one strike with it was like Savathun's fucking floating shrieker. It was a strike where 9 Guardians went in and only 2 or 3 came out, and then the one that was talking to us was the last Guardian left. And I was just thinking, like, how is it that the three of us can take out all this hive and the boss, but 9 Guardians couldn't do that? That doesn't make any sense. 3 of us can do it, even one of us can do it, but these 9 Guardians couldn't? That doesn't, like, it, I don't get it. Why is every other Guardian but ours just so weak? Our Guardian goes from being lightless to being chosen by the Traveler again, which, tells us that we are a special Guardian because the Traveler chose us to bring back the light. We are the vessel of the Traveler, which is awesome, like I said. But then Shahhal's Guardians are fucking dying left and right. I think her name was Kaide. I can't remember. She was an EXO. Those of us who played the Red War will know what I'm talking about. But 9 Guardians went in and only one of them survived, and then still died at the very end. And it's like, are Guardians actually like strong? Because you hear all these crazy stories about how strong Guardians are, but then in gameplay you only ever hear about them fucking dying. Like, how am I supposed to think how am I supposed to think that we're protecting anything if we're just dying left and right? Our Guardian is the only one that's ever doing anything, so how hasn't the city fallen yet if it's only our Guardian surviving these fights and making it back home? One Guardian isn't enough to hold off 4 different armies from 4 different factions. It just won't ever be enough. So I think they should do something more with us. They need to make us more recognized for our achievements. This is my opinion. They don't have to, but I feel like they should. They should make us feel more recognized for our achievements, for what we did for the Traveler and everything like that. We should be able to interact with more characters around the last city, and just get more characters in general, because having more people to talk to and more personalities is awesome. They want it to be an MMORPG, but it feels super streamlined and linear compared to other MMORPGs. And they want to evolve the world, but then keep everything else stagnant. The only thing they're evolving in the game, like I said, is the end game, and just adding in new endgame activities and new planets for those activities to be on, which is, in my opinion, just awful. I don't like staying on one place for the entirety of the season, you know? It's just annoying. And the seasonal model, it's kind of whatever for me. I don't really like it because I just do the same thing over and over again to get weapons that I'm definitely still going to use, but it's just boring to me. But I don't really care too much. I don't make video games, so I can't imagine making new content is hard, but I don't feel like it should be hard to make new characters. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm being wish-washy about this, but I I personally think that we should have a stronger base before we keep expanding on the end game. Because Destiny players as a whole, we've all been given end game forever now, and the most hardcore players are grinding through it left and right. You have player retention, but you don't have a way of getting new players. And the players that you do get are fucking confused beyond a shadow of the doubt of what the hell is going on. They don't know why we're fighting these bad guys. They don't know why they're invading us. They don't know why we're fighting the same species that we're friends with, because they have to go on YouTube and look it up. Now I know that the hardware limitations is why they took out content, but I honestly, I would have just gone with making the game absurdly large, because it's an MMO game. You can't just it's an MMO game. You can't just take out content that is detrimental to the world building and story of a game that's really trying to both be a multiplayer focused game and then also a story driven game. I feel like Bungie is in this dilemma where they want to do both, but they can't do either one really good. They can either do story, but then that push away from the multiplayer experience of doing raids, strikes, nightfalls, and stuff like that. Or they can go into multiplayer, which pushes away from the story experience of character building, world building, and a story with a beginning to the end. Because right now, Destiny is a story that has an end coming to it, but has no beginning because of the content that they took out. New players don't know why they're fighting. I still don't even know why I'm fighting, because I don't know the people that I'm fighting for. All I know is that it's the last city. I have to protect it. But that's such a fucking vague answer that I don't think is even correctly articulated. No. It's such a vague answer that I don't feel is enough, because what if the people I'm fighting for are terrible people? What if the people I'm fighting for don't even know what I'm fighting for? Like, I'm trying to come up with good reasons. I can't really think of any. Maybe because I don't have a good reason. I don't know. But like, I really feel like our Guardian doesn't really mean anything to the characters of our world. I love how we can interact with other Guardians that we've met along the way, or more like story mode Guardians, because the only Guardians we ever interact with are like Anna Bray Zavala, Ikora, maybe sometimes Shaq, Saint 14, Osiris. Like those are all like story mode Guardians, and they're awesome characters. But like the only time we ever got a shred of what the last city thinks of Guardians, or what the last city, or of what we're protecting in the last city, was in the Red Boar. When Hawthorne was the one spearheading the Red War attack and rallying civilians to fight off the Cabal. that was when we started getting some characterization of the people we were defending. And that was the last time we ever got it. Everything else has always been about the darkness, how we need to defend people, how we need to save someone. And it's always like saving another guardian or protecting another guardian. It's never about protecting people that are weaker than us. It's always about saving those that are just as strong as we are. We shouldn't have to save them. They should be able to save themselves. And if anything, the only time we should save them is if it's something that's incredibly detrimental, right? Maybe I've gone off on like multiple tangents, and this doesn't really have like an endpoint or beginning, but like there's just so much on my mind that they could do that I'm trying to project that I can't really articulate in a sensible manner. And what I want for this game is just to have to sum up these 30 minutes, what I want in this game is to have a clear beginning and a clear end. The end is coming, and the build up to the end has been amazing. But there is a really weird part from the beginning to the middle, that nobody has seen, or at least new players have not seen and won't ever see. Old players won't ever see it again, and new players won't ever see it. It's extremely abrupt, because say that you're a new player, you do New Light, and then you go straight into the seasonal content where they're talking about the darkness and taking out fucking Ziva Arath and all this other shit and saving Osiris and whatnot. It feels so fucking weird because there's no build up to that and just goes straight to the middle. You have your beginning, which is you waking up, and then you just go straight to the middle. You don't fucking go along the journey to get to the middle. You just go from point A to point B and then on your way to point C. Like there's a build up going to point C, but there's no build up going to point B, if that makes sense. It's jarring. Really weird. Doesn't make sense. I just want for there to be more story in the game. The game is suffering, in my opinion, story mode wise. The game is suffering from top ending its story rather than putting more support for it. Think of it as like a house. There's not enough foundation for the full house, and eventually it's just gonna fall over and break. Our guardian should feel special, but our guardian also needs to experience the buildup. And the best way they can do that is have our guardian go through these crazy events to make them begin to feel special, and then for them to actually be special once the guardian gets to be on light. Because there's only three things that I can think of that really make me feel special as a guardian. When Saladin proclaimed me as his young wolf, an Iron Lord. When I was the vessel of the traveler. And when I was told that I can use the dark and light freely because it flows within me equally, like yin and yang. Those are the only 3 times that I felt special as a guardian, because they were telling me that I did something that no one else could have done. I was the one that put Siva back to sleep. I was the one that brought back the light. I was the one that was able to control the darkness when it consumed everyone else. But like I said, in the end, it means nothing because nobody cares in the game. None of the Vanguard acknowledges it afterwards. Nothing. And I also feel really special when Shax calls me one of our brightest returns. That makes me feel really giddy inside. I don't know if what I said was able to be articulated into any decent points, and I don't know if a lot of it just seemed like innocent rambling, because I've had these thoughts on my mind for a while, and I didn't know how to get them out there. And I've always had these thoughts of like, what if this happened, or what if the story was going in this direction? Halo made it so that you felt special as a Master Chief, because the Master Chief has a backstory. Okay, no more rambling, but they were able to do Halo so well with its story. And I know Destiny kind of had a fucked up beginning because of Activision, and they were just rushing the hell out of it. But they did really good with Destiny 2 story, but then they decided to get rid of it. Curse of Osiris was a dumpster fire, but at least the story was tangible. Same with Warmind. And then Forsaken was the best we've had since Taken King. I think Rise of Iron was better than the Taken King, but that's my opinion. The stories were all tangible, and then they were cut. It just feels weird that the story feels so disconnected. The reason why I worked so well with Halo was because you were in the military away from civilians, away from of the lives you were protecting. But then in ODST, they decided to expand upon what the fuck was happening when the Covenant invaded Earth. And they did it pretty well through audio logs that you found throughout the game. They did that really well. And it really gave you the sense of like, oh my god, these are the people that I'm protecting because they need to be protected, because this is an overwhelmingly powerful force that they can't do anything about. But in Destiny, it just doesn't feel like you're protecting anything. It just feels like you're killing things for the sake of it, because they hurt your feelings, so you need to hurt them 4 times as much physically. I think the game is good. I think Destiny 2 is a good game. I just wish it was more accessible so I could recommend it to more people. And my point that I brought up about Warframe and The Division is that The Division is fairly accessible. I just get bored super easily. I don't like playing The Division. And Warframe is overly inaccessible, where it's just a lot of shit that they're throwing at you with no clear and concise story. And the only time you get the story is when you get towards the mid-game, or where you get more story, more concise story is towards the mid-game in Warframe. And that's kind of like the same problem with Destiny, except Destiny is a little bit more accessible because the controls and the systems in place are a lot more accessible to new players. Warframes is not as accessible, but they both share a problem where there's a bit of story at the beginning, and then there's none until you hit the mid-game. And it's just weird, in my opinion. I don't know if what I'm saying is concise and whatnot, and if there's a lot of people watching this, I would love to hear everyone's thoughts and opinions. I would love to become like this channel that reviews and just rambles about games I'm playing, not just their story, but also the gameplay itself. I don't really want to talk about gameplay because I feel Destiny is in its own ballpark when it comes to gameplay. It has some of the best, most satisfying gameplay I've ever played in my life. And that's saying a lot because I came from Halo, and I know a lot of people are just going to roll their eyes like, oh, another Halo fanboy, he's suckling the cock of Bungie. And I'm just like, yeah, I am, but like Halo was just a really different game for me. Doom was super good, the old one and the new one. Um, like, but Halo always scratched that itch that I always wanted, and it was a game that I grew up with. I'm 18 now. I grew up with playing Halo 2 and 3, and only recently, like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, played the first Halo, which is crazy. And funnily enough, I don't actually like Halo 1 that much when in comparison to playing the other Halo games. Halo 3 or Halo 2, I still have a hard time choosing between the two. Those two are like my top favorite games of all time. Halo 2 more for its story now that I understand it, but Halo 3 for its gameplay because I just loved it so much as a kid. I didn't play the multiplayers because I didn't have any internet, but I played the hell out of the campaigns. And I would play nothing but the campaigns. So, I grew up on Halo. And if anything, Bungie has an amazing way with making fun, interactable, and satisfying gameplay. They took what they learned. They took what they learned from Halo, put it into Destiny, and expanded on it. And the gameplay is fucking awesome. It is so damn good. It's its own style of gameplay that I love to death. A lot of other games have tried to do what Destiny does, like Anthem and Outriders. Those are the two that I can think of off the top of my head. They try to do what Destiny does with the 3 weapon systems and then having abilities, but they just couldn't get it right because they weren't Bungie. If only they had more time to develop, I personally would have be playing. I play Warframe and Destiny, the 2 most grindiest fucking MMORPGs on the planet. So I would have had a third MMO to go to. Maybe not MMORPGs, but the 2 most grindiest looter shooters on the planet. And I would have been playing Anthem with that, or getting rid of one of those games to play Anthem. I've taken a break from Destiny for a few months, taken a break from Warframe for a couple years, and I'm still coming back and forth between the two and playing both of them just as equally and just as much. The games are good. They just have a really bad accessibility problem and story problem. I came from Halo, so I just expect Bungie to be better at story crafting. But yeah, like I said, if you guys like me rambling on about stupid shit, I would really appreciate it if you would just let your friends know that, I'm a channel that not only plays video games like a crackhead, but also complains and shares my thoughts and love for video games that I like. I don't know if I'll be taking recommendations on what games I should play and review. I don't really have money to buy different games. I would love to talk about Dead Space because I have the new Dead Space. Yeah. Hope you guys liked whatever the hell I was talking about. And like I said, if you can, just tell your friends about what I was talking about. Even, I know it wasn't that good because it wasn't scripted. This video was just me rambling about thoughts in my mind about a game that I love to death and want to see better from. But I know I can't always be clear. So it would be awesome if I could get more people to watch my stuff and give me more advice, I really appreciate it if you really did watch from beginning to end. I know it's just a black screen. I don't really have crazy editing software. I'm recording this on my phone and just uploading it. But I appreciate it if you watch from beginning to end, or even if you skip through it, that's fine. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope you liked it.